How many people know what it means to self-actualize? Raise your hand. Okay. To reach your potential, okay? What about Maslow's hierarchy of need? Have you ever heard of that? Right? So everybody is taught that. Maslow's hierarchy of need. Everybody's taught that to reach your potential. That should be the drive, right? Isn't it interesting that when you try to do that, sometimes people think that you're arrogant, you're know-it-all. I don't want to come across that way, but sometimes people look at me that way. I want to be the best that I can be. Not perfect. I am not a control freak at all, and I am not a perfectionist. If you don't believe me, you can go look in my car, okay? I just want to be the best I can be, and I want my friends, I want everyone that I interact with to be their best. So I'm going to try to raise them up. M. Scott Peck was asked in the Road Less Traveled what he thought the meaning of marriage was. What was the highlight of being married? He said, to help your partner reach their spiritual potential. How many marriages is that their foundation? Oh, you've gained weight. I don't like how you look. You're changed. You changed. You need to grow together. You need to challenge each other. Or it gets boring. One of my favorite musicians is Dan Fogelberg. And he wrote a song on his Netherlands album, and there is a line in there that he talks about the muse in terms of authors and poets and artists improving our life. And he says, oil on canvas, couplets and stanzas to divine who you are, not define. To divine who you are. We need to divine each other. We don't need to define each other anymore. Labels divide us. We need to lift each other up to reach our potential. Sometimes our relationships help us do that, but sometimes life has a way of waking us up. And that, to me, is what lightning strikes means. I was in my attic studio a number of years ago in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, overlooking the South Hills, and there was a bad storm. Boom! Lightning hit my attic, 15 feet away from where I was standing. From me to you in the orange. No, boom. It woke me up. So there are these ways that life wakes us up. Last October, I was driving from Youngstown, Ohio to Pittsburgh. I had done it dozens of times. It was in October. It was a beautiful night. Had the car on cruise control. And I'm singing to these oldies, going down the highway. Bam! 74 miles an hour to 0 in about 2 seconds. It was like I hit a wall. A deer had jumped in front of me. I saw him for a split second, and then it was over. I never even saw him move. I never even saw me hit him. A big buck with horns. But I got out of that car, and the engine was steaming. And let me tell you, this was not a fender bender. This was divine providence, okay? I got out of the car, and I called 911, and I called my family. But I'm walking back and forth, and I'm looking at that car, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know? Now, she had mentioned that I have osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a brittle bone disease. I started breaking when I was 3 years old. I've had over 20 broken bones, 3 broken legs. No, I don't have 3 legs. This one was twice, including my femur. I've crushed my foot. I have 6 screws in there. I've crushed this elbow that they thought they might have to remove it. My wrist 3 times, skull, pelvis, tailbones, fingers, toes. So I was a little nervous about the airbag. I thought that I should get it disconnected. So you can understand why I was standing there thinking, I don't have a scratch on me. All right, let's leave the accident. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Funny that Amanda mentioned 9/11. 9/11, I had a great job at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center working for an osteoporosis research doctor. I was in a 14-year relationship. It was good, but it wasn't great. The Moody Blues says it's all very nice, but not very good, you know? Again, sometimes you fall into mediocre, lukewarm. And I was uncomfortable. I didn't know why, but there was something missing. A friend had given me a book called Callings. Great book. If you're trying to figure out your life, Callings. Finding and Following an Authentic Life by Greg Lavoie. That book changed my life. I went to one of his workshops. Long story short, at the end we circled all of the notes we had taken and what were the words that most focused on what we had learned. 2 words for me, love and fear. I'm like, okay, how do I punch that into monster.com? Where am I going to get a job with this, I had quit my job, and I thought, I wonder how many people are dealing with this. People kept saying, you need to be on Prozac, and I wasn't opposed to taking medicine, but I thought, is that, you're just going to take a pill to cure your ill, I wanted to know what other people were doing, and not just my friends, because the people that you hang out with usually think kind of like you, right? So I traveled in my 20-year-old Fiat convertible. It's like a Fred Flintstone mobile, okay? And I traveled 4,400 miles for 30 days by myself through 12 states to interview strangers about contentment. About their work, their relationship, sexuality, spirituality. And I'm not going to tell you anything more about it, so maybe there'll be another talk coming up somewhere, huh? But when I got done with that, I came back to Pittsburgh, and my father was on hospice, and they had interviewed him, an audio tape, and he called me up, and he called me Charlie. He says, hey, Charlie, guess what? He goes, they're going to interview me. They're recording my life. And I was like, they better get their boots out, He's a storyteller. But he was excited. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I was interested in audio-visual things. So I went to this hospice and I asked them if they were interested in starting a program where I interviewed their patients. And they were like, yeah, that's great. But, nonprofits, we don't really have the money to do that. So after, I just planted that seed. And in the meantime, I had to make a living, but I wanted to do things that I believed in, so I got into fundraising. And I raised money for the Sierra Club, Southern Poverty Law Center, PBS, WYEP in Pittsburgh, great radio station. And then I got a job as the public relations manager at IKEA. And I loved that job. That was a great job. But all of a sudden, I get a phone call. Now, 14 months had gone by, okay, since I approached that hospice. 14 months. I get a phone call from them, and they say, we have some money now. Are you still in? I said, yeah. But the day they called me, 14 months later, the day they called me, I had just walked in my house from my father's funeral. I hadn't even unpacked my car. 14 months, and they called me on that day. So during my interview, we're all crying, and they're like, are you sure this isn't, too raw? I said, oh no, my father has a hand in this. So I became the quality program coordinator, and I interviewed my patients, and they wanted me to do a story for the newspaper. And I said, let me get the right story, I'll know it. That's when I met Laura McNamara. Her story is in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, 2005, if you want to look it up. Laura McNamara, MANKAMYER. Laura was 30 years old. She had met her husband in the Marine Corps. She was a marathon runner. She did illustrations for children's books. She was a realtor. Dynamo. This is what she was. She had lived a lifetime in that 30 years, more than some people live to 100. And I will say that we need to learn to celebrate people's lives at the end of life. Are you surprised when somebody's going to die? You didn't know? We do need to learn to celebrate. It's sad, of course. But her family was there, and her husband's family, and they were singing songs and from the halls of my, and they were singing hymns, and they were joking, and they were crying, and they were showing pictures around, and the photographer was there, and, which, by the way, they did 3 full pages on her. Full pages. And her son was sitting on the bed, 6 years old, and she kind of made a, And he said, Mommy, are you okay? Mommy, are you okay? Okay? Thumbs up. My life now, the meaning of life, you know what it is? To live my life so that I have a peaceful death. This is your barometer. I hope that I can have a thumbs up. But I want to go back really quickly to the accident. The tow truck arrived. And it was pretty cold. He was a nice guy, real nice guy. And he said, come on in the truck while we're waiting for the police. And we got talking about music, because that's my favorite subject, I'm a DJ once in a while, and I had my own show at YSU for a couple of years, and I love music. So, of course, I get talking about the Beatles, because, those are my guys. And he liked them, too. We were talking about the Beatles and everything, And I said, yeah, George is my favorite. Okay? He says, yeah, but you know what? He had to go and get spiritual, Why did they have to do that? Yeah. Why did he have to go and do that, George, Like it's a bad thing? We want to watch all these negative news shows. There used to be a show on Saturdays about 20 years ago that was like a E.T., but it was like a good, positive news. It didn't last a year. At the same time, there was a magazine called Hope Magazine. What is wrong with us? Are we going to settle for this? We're not self-actualizing. And let me tell you something. At that accident, I deal with severe depression and thoughts of suicide through my whole life. You know why? Because I'm extremely sensitive. I'm a highly sensitive person. Go to TED Talks and type in HSP. You'll learn a lot, as I did. Not only am I highly sensitive, I found out this year that I am an intuitive empath. I'm an intuitive empathic person. My sense of people's emotions are like a dog's smell. And I'm going to tell you something, a lot of people that are struggling with addiction and who have committed suicide, you don't want to be here. Because negativity and lying, those kind of things to us is like kryptonite. I can't breathe. When I see people in trouble, oh, don't worry, Ellen, we got this, you know? You take care of yourself. When you tell somebody that loves you not to care. So I'm asking all of you, if you have anybody dealing with mental health, addiction, they talk about suicide, don't think they're using it. They're just using it to manipulate me. You may be surprised someday, okay? Get your thumb up there. Get your thumb up. Raise your thumbs up, okay? This is your barometer. And it's going to go with you wherever you are. It's connected, okay? And if you don't share it with anybody else inside your head, with every decision that you make, every relationship, everything that you say, everything that you do, you want to strive to keep a thumbs up. Thank you.